Hello and welcome to this week's edition of World of Business. Now, last week Zimbabwe hosted the 7th SADC Industrialization Week from the 28th of July to the 2nd of August, running under the same theme as that of the upcoming SADC Summit, that is, promoting innovation to unlock opportunities for sustainable economic growth and development towards an industrialized SADC. Now, President Emmerson Mnangagwa said SADC member states must pay sustainable growth for a sound and diversified industrial base with wide-ranging new projects and jobs for the people. To help us review what actually took place at the SADC Industrialization Week, we are joined by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Dr. Thomas Utete Wushe.
Thank you, Celia. It's also my pleasure to have you here today.
All right, so to kickstart the conversation, can you give us key takeaways from the SADC Industrialization Week?
The first day was our media briefing where some of your colleagues were there. It was just there to set up the tone, to open up Zimbabwe for SADC and the world, to say we are about to host one of the most important events for SADC on the SADC calendar, which happens every single year. But this particular one was number 7 because the previous ones didn't take off. But we as Zimbabwe said we are going to do it, and we did it. And I'm quite happy to say we had a number of key takeaways. The first thing was about regional integration, working together as a region. And then the second takeaway that I would like to really talk to is the cooperation and collaboration between government and business. That was demonstrated at the highest order. Right from the preparations, government and business were working together. Not only Zimbabwe government and Zimbabwe business, but the region as a whole. So all the 16 member state governments and 16 member state business associations were involved in the planning. So the one big takeaway is together we can make it, and that was really pleasant. And we also got banks, international organizations, international development organizations, and private sector came to support the war event.
Okay, so like you rightfully mentioned, one of the key reasons in forming the hosting of the SADC Industrialization Week is that it's sought to promote industrialization, to showcase investment opportunities across different value chains, and facilitating networking amongst stakeholders in the industrial sector. To what extent would you think that this was fulfilled during the course of the Industrialization Week?
Far beyond our expectation. Because the first thing we did before we really started anything, we sent our teams to do benchmarking exercises. So the benchmarking exercises gave us a guide of what we were to expect. We were to expect very few investment agencies, very few investors, and a maximum number of 300 delegates. That is if we had worked hard. But come Zimbabwe show, the Zimbabwe event, we managed to get over 3,500 delegates, which was far beyond the expectations. And we attracted investors from about 30 countries, because we had a total of 54 investors, foreign investors who were coming. And a number of them were outside SADC region. We had investors from Egypt, we had investors from UK, US, China sent quite a huge delegation, and we also had people from Rwanda coming to see and look at the opportunities of investment in the SADC region. So our major selling point was one air ticket into one room, and you meet 16 investment promotion agencies. I must say, more than 9 investment promotion agencies came to showcase their products. Then on the networking side, that we went beyond our expectations. We looked at one day we had about 900 delegates in the auditorium from different countries, different sectors, and they all had time to to interact and network.
What's your comment with regards to that, the industry players and the government itself, the relationship that exists between those two players?
The future is looking good. Government came up with a promise to make the business environment better, to come up with more policies. And the government also came up with a listening ear to hear what the business had to say about industrialization. And I could say the same about business too, because I have had very good feedback from the business. And it was also a very exciting moment for our own chamber, the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industry, which was at that time taking over chairmanship of the SADC Business Council. So a lot of expectations. We say that we have set a bar that is difficult to maintain, but we are committed to demonstrate that as Zimbabwe, we shall take industrialization to the next level.
So you say that the number of investors or people that actually showed interest in investing in Zimbabwe and also those that participated at the industrialization week far exceeded the number which was expected. Which areas did they show interest in investing, and what do you think in terms of promoting intra-African trade as a concept?
I tend to default towards Zimbabwe, but the real fact is the SADC Industrialization Week was not a Zimbabwe show. Zimbabwe was hosting on behalf of all the member states. So the investment promotion agencies who were in the room are 9 in total, representing 9 different countries, showcasing their opportunities. Malawi, Eswatini, Botswana were here, Mozambique, and everybody, Namibia. So those were the projects that were being put to show for the 54 international investors to come and look at on day 2 of the SADC Industrialization Week.
We've come to the end of the first segment, where we are taking a review of the 7th SADC Industrialization Week that was held last week, and we are joined by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Do join us after the break as we continue with more discussion. Stay tuned. Welcome to the second segment of this week's edition of World of Business, where we are taking a review of the recently held 7th SADC Industrialization Week, and we are joined by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Dr. Thomas Utete Wushe. Doc, it's a pleasure to have you once again on the show, and as we continue with the discussion, maybe just to take you back a bit, how has been the feedback so far from the Industrialization Week?
Okay, I'm very excited about the feedback that we have been receiving, right from day 1. Then we got deeper into the plenary and other meetings that were going deep diving into issues of industrialization and all that, which we had fantastic group of panelists and a lot of participation. You could see that this conference is really setting a bar that is hard to meet in the future. So we also promised that the next country, Zimbabwe, will be ready to support whichever country will be chairing that SADC Industrialization Week and hosting it, so that we improve as a region. One thing that I got, perhaps because it's the latest, is feedback about the company visits. It really went beyond all our expectations. The selection of the sectors that were put together by the team is fantastic.
You speak of the positive feedback that we have received as a country after hosting the 7th SADC Industrialization Week. So in your own opinion and view, and also representing the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, what would you say is the difference between us hosting the SADC Summit and assuming chairmanship this time compared to when we did that about 10 years ago? What is going to make us special this time?
10 years ago, we did not do the SADC Industrialization Week. The SADC Industrialization Week is our first. And also during this time when we were number 7 but our first, we also introduced a full day of investment forum. So we really marked ourselves apart from the whole group to say in Zimbabwe we come up with innovative ways of doing things, in this particular case, answering to the need of the region, because investment leads to industrialization. I can promise you the whole SADC region shall be a resounding success. A success that shall be talked about for many, many years to come.
You've given us a lot more positive light to look forward to as we host the SADC Summit. But officially opening the 7th SADC Industrialization Week, our incoming SADC Chairman, Dr. Emerson Mnangagwa, called for greater collaboration between the public and private sector in order to successfully implement the industrialization and modernization agenda. In your own view and opinion, and as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, how do you think we need to get to this mark where we are fully realizing our capacity to industrialize and to modernize as SADC?
Okay, I think His Excellency gave us the formula. Engage and re-engage. That is the platform on which we are going to build that strong relationship. Now, tell you, I believe that the strongest shape ever is a triangle. And this triangle, we see it existing in Zimbabwe, existing in SADC. The triangle between government, business, and labor. So the three of them committed, that's the private sector and public sector, committed to make a difference, would actually propel the economic development of our region. And we have an objective. We are not just moving in darkness. We want to be, for instance, in Zimbabwe, upper middle income society by 2030.
We see that the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap was introduced when the last time Zimbabwe chaired the bloc. And one of the key issues that was emphasized in that strategy was the issue of value addition and beneficiation of primary products. And now with the coming in of the Second Republic, we see a lot of locally manufactured goods on the shelves, which are hailing and giving the crown to how much Zimbabwe is industrialized and is capable of manufacturing its own products, which is also a full testimony to what you are saying, and also demonstrating the capacity that we have as a nation to produce for ourselves. What do you think, what more needs to be done in order to reduce the imports, the amount of imports that we are taking in as a nation in Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe is not short of entrepreneurs. Zimbabwe is not short of business people, and Zimbabwe is not short of innovative ideas. What we need now is patient capital. Our industry needs capital to grow so that we can produce for ourselves. And also, as the Secretary for Industry and Commerce, I need to plead and talk to our people to start loving our products. We had, let's quality not be the hurdle for us to consume our own products. We need this patriotism for our products to grow. That is the only way we can achieve our objectives. So let's buy Zimbabwe.
So lastly, Doc, before we close off the program, speaking of promoting Brand Zimbabwe, the SADC Industrialization Week closed off with factory visits that were meant to showcase our industrial capacity in Zimbabwe. What lessons or what feedback can you give with regards to that in as far as improving our industrialization strategy is concerned?
Okay, I really want to thank the people who were designing the program for the SADC Industrialization Week. After doing the getting onto our buses and getting to the factories and getting the feedback and looking at how excited all the delegates were, and including the industry, I think that is one of the best things. That was one of the best things that SADC Secretariat and the team putting together the program made. The most exciting thing that happened was something that came as at the invitation of His Excellency Dr. Mnangagwa. Because on Wednesday, when we were briefing him about the visits, he invited the delegates to come through to his farm to see the agro processing, the mechanization. And I really don't know why we had not thought about it, but this invitation, we quickly accepted it, and we managed to attract 150 delegates, and some of them were from about 5 different countries who came and spent time at the First Family's farm. And we managed to see the mechanized farming. There was a very exciting comment there that this is leadership. When a leader can feed its own nation, it shows that we have now matured and are serious about developing our own country. The whole program was excellent, but I can tell you that for many, many years to come, SADC will be talking about this, and not only SADC, the world will be talking about the SADC Industrialization Week. It was great.
Thank you so much, Doc. That was a very educational conversation. Insightful conversation we have had here today with the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Dr. Thomas Utete Wushe, who was giving us a review of the just ended SADC Industrialization Week, which took place from the 28th of July to the 2nd of August, running under the theme Promoting Innovation to Unlock Opportunities for Sustainable Economic Growth and Development Towards an Industrialized SADC. Now, speaking of ensuring food security in the SADC region, in the last segment, we're going to speak to a big player in the manufacturing sector who also took part in the factory visits during the SADC Industrialization Week last week, as they tell us more about the importance of value addition and beneficiation in the manufacturing sector. Stay tuned. And welcome to the final segment of this week's edition of World of Business, where we put the spotlight on local companies making huge strides supporting the government to achieve the National Development Strategy 1 goals. Now, one of the key issues that was recently raised by the incoming SADC chairman, His Excellency Dr. Mnangagwa, is that members of the regional bloc should prioritize food security in SADC. It is also one of the factors motivating regional integration and intra-African trade in SADC. Now, with Zimbabwe on the correct trajectory to achieve this goal, today we visited a big player in the manufacturing sector who is involved in agro processing, and is going to tell us more about value addition and beneficiation, as you can see right behind me. We're going to be joined by Mr. Michael Lashbrook. Just to kickstart the conversation, can you tell us more about National Foods? Where are we starting from and where are we now?
Sure. So thank you very much. Our organization was founded in 1920. We were the genesis of a couple of family firms back then. And from there, we were listed on the stock exchange, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, in 1975. And so now we have a very proud history of 104 years dating back to 1920.
Would you say that this company, this organization is addressing as far as achieving food security in Zimbabwe and in the SADC region as a whole is concerned?
We participate right across the basic food commodity space, maize meal, flour, animal food as well. We downpack rice and salt. But of interest, in recent years, we've embarked on a journey to go up the value chain, and we've started value adding our base commodities. So a very exciting time for us in the last couple of years.
As a manufacturer in Zimbabwe, what lessons would you say that you've learned that can resonate with other manufacturers? And what do you think should be done for the manufacturing sector to realize its full potential?
I'll speak to you maybe more from the perspective of an agro-industrialist. We obviously value add grains and commodity that has been produced in the country. So in terms of what we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, general recovery in local agricultural production, which has been very positive for us. We obviously like to see the funds that we deploy to raw materials going into the local ecosystem. So that's been very positive. And I think generally, from an environmental perspective, generally positive policies towards industry.
So your long-term goal, looking at ensuring food security in the SADC region?
We've traditionally been very much basic food commodity players. I think traditionally those sort of products, it's very hard to export those kind of products, maize meal, flour. Generally countries tend to be self-sufficient in those products within the region. But what we're now doing is we're looking to value add those products. So we've invested in products like pasta, biscuits, snacks, breakfast cereal. And with those, because they carry a little bit of a higher margin, there's opportunity to export into the region. And that's something very much that we're looking at within the coming years. So not only serving the local market with those products, but hopefully entering into the region as well.
Definitely. But now with Zimbabwe and the rest of Southern Africa having been infested by the El Nino-induced droughts, what would you say we need to do as a region to achieve zero poverty, as it is one of the key factors that is going to be also considered and discussed in the upcoming SADC Summit? What do you think needs to be done in order to make sure that there is really zero poverty in Africa?
Yeah, I think, as you say, this year has been an absolutely devastating drought, one of the worst in living memory. Fortunately, we're able to import raw materials from the region for this year, but that's a temporary solution. I think policy-wise, our government is very much doing the right things. If you look particularly in terms of irrigation to support to try and make our own production less weather reliant in the years ahead. So I think general policy to ensure that we can produce consistently in the years ahead is very important. Unfortunately, climate change is here to stay with us. So we do need to make ourselves weather-proof, climate-proof in terms of our agricultural production.
Definitely. And like what you're saying, now we see that about 80% of our goods on the shelves are locally manufactured, which is different from the previous years where we majored more on imports. But now what do you think we need to do as a nation to ensure that value addition and beneficiation are considered mainly when issues of food security are discussed on the table?
Yeah, so I think as you've highlighted there, we've made massive strides in the last few years, but there's more to go. If I give you some of the examples, some of the products we're going into, for example, cornflakes. A lot of our cornflakes on our shelves here are imported. And corn, as the name says, is made from maize, which we grow in this country. Pasta is essentially flour and water. A lot of our pasta in the country is imported. And now that we're surplus wheat producers in this country, hopefully we can take that wheat and value add it not only into flour and then bread, but into pasta and biscuits, for example. And these are products that have previously been imported. So it's benefiting the country, less forex needs, and it's also localizing a lot of that revenue generation and economic activity, which is very positive. We take our responsibility very seriously to provide good quality, safe, affordable food products to the nation as a whole. We distribute right to all the corners of the nation. And I think our basic food commodities are very well known, but the journey I described to you of the recent investments where we've gone into 4 new categories, namely breakfast cereals, snacks, pasta and biscuits, I think those represent a step forward in terms of value addition.
And now we're looking forward to the big event, the SADC Summit, which is going to be hosted in the country in a few days' time. And His Excellency, Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, assuming chairmanship of the bloc. I mean, it's a big step for us as a nation. what is your message to fellow manufacturers and to the people of Zimbabwe?
Firstly, a tremendous honor for our country to host such an event and to take on the chairmanship of the region. And I think really, really positive step. I think acknowledgement of some of the great strides that have been taken in this country. I think in terms of a message, I'd maybe rather look in towards ourselves and just to say that as an entity, we'll keep continuing to strive to get better and to contribute towards the economy and future progress in the country. So overall, I think very positive and very excited that we've been given this honor as a country.
Come to the end of this week's edition of World of Business, where we spoke to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Dr. Thomas Utete Wushe, who was giving us a review of the just ended SADC Industrialization Week, which was running under the theme Promoting Innovation to Unlock Opportunities for Sustainable Economic Growth and Development towards an Industrialized SADC. In the last segment, we were joined by a local player in the manufacturing sector, Mr. Michael Lashbrook, who was telling us more about the importance of value addition and beneficiation in the manufacturing sector as we are working towards achieving zero poverty in the SADC region. Now we'll continue to give you more updates on the upcoming SADC Summit as we look forward to this event.